following is a presentation of DangerZone Productions.
Listen all you motherfuckers!
Chrono Trigger. For a lot of us, this was the RPG that got us hooked on RPGs. The game that got us playing a lot of the popular games today. Hi, I'm Danny South. You've just entered the Danger Zone. And after my little brush with death in the last review, I feel that it might be necessary for me to take it easy this time, you know? Just instead of reviewing things that make me go completely mental and want to drive a railroad spike through somebody's temple, instead, why not take a look at something that I actually enjoy, something I liked, something that I loved from when I was growing up? Which is why I've decided we're going to take a look at Chrono Trigger. As I said before, for a lot of us, this was the game that got us hooked. Now, I know there's a lot of gamers and fanboys out there that'll say Final Fantasy VII is the quintessential holy grail of RPGs. And maybe they're right. But, if I could be so bold to say, Chrono Trigger is at least a very, very close second. What makes this game so popular? What has earned it a special place in the hearts of gamers worldwide, both old and new alike? Let's take a look and find out.
Chrono Trigger was unlike any RPG gamers had ever seen before. It had a boss storyline, really interesting set of characters, and a kick-ass soundtrack, which is more than some games nowadays can even hope for. Developers of Squaresoft, now referred to as Square Enix, even went so far as to say the group working on the project was an absolute dream team, and for good reason. The group consisted of Hironobu Sakaguchi, who was known for his work in the Final Fantasy series, Yuji Hirai, a freelance designer for Enix, who had worked on the popular Dragon Quest series, and a certain freelance manga artist by the name of Akira Toriyama, who did some frame work in Dragon Quest, but I think we all know what he's mostly known for.
So with a design team like that, is it really any surprise that the game became such a cult hit? I don't think so. But in my personal opinion, one of the things, in my mind at least, that made this game stand out as a true gem in the gaming world is they did something that rarely ends in success. They did something that both game designers and even movie makers alike have been trying to replicate. They told a time travel story that actually makes sense. Great Scott! Oh yeah. I don't think you guys understand. Making a time travel story is so very complicated. If you want your time travel story to stand out in any way, you have got to cover your friggin' bases on this. You can't leave room for any kind of speculation. You can't leave a single plot hole. Because if you leave even so much as a single little thing, people are going to take it and they're going to pick it like a scab until it becomes a bleeding opening wound.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
But I'm sure you guys are probably tired of me talking about the behind-the-scenes stuff, so let's get to the actual gameplay stuff. The game takes place in what I think is supposed to be Earth. I don't think they ever come right out and say it's Earth, so I'm just going to call it Earth. As a character named Chrono meets a girl named Meryl at the fair. They take a little romp around, enjoying the sights and sounds, until Meryl somehow gets her sent back in time. This really makes the hit the fan because it turns out Meryl was actually the princess. So, of course, they're going to point the finger at the last guy who was with her. It's got to be the hair. Yeah, it's got to be the hair. However, Chrono manages to find his own way to travel back in time in hopes of finding Meryl and returning her to her present time. When he gets there, he finds that the people of that time have mistaken her for her ancestor, who was kidnapped not too long ago. This turns out not to be so good because, since they've given up the search for her ancestor, she apparently gets axed off sometime in the near future, and that results in Meryl never being born. Well, now Chrono's really knee-deep in so it's up to him and Luca to get her back. Once they do get her back, they flee to another time portal, this time taking them to the far distant future, where they discover that the Earth, well, looks like a turd box. The reason for this being, in 1999 AD, a powerful molten hedgehog named Lavos emerged from the Earth and rained down his dandruffy doom upon the world, resulting in it being completely eradicated.
Great Scott!
And so the mission is clear, as our three heroes decide then and there that they are going to do whatever they can to prevent the Day of Lavos from ever occurring and save the world. And that's basically the plot, our heroes racing through time to try and figure out a way to prevent Lavos from destroying the world. And this opens the game up to all kinds of different aspects and scenarios, as you'll find yourself traveling through different time periods like the prehistoric time, the Middle Ages, the post-apocalyptic future, just all of this stuff. There's so many different scenarios. There's different characters for different time periods, each one represented quite well, might I add. Not to mention the fact that this game pioneered the industry by being the first game to actually have multiple endings depending on what kind of choices you make throughout the storyline. This had never even been considered before. Chrono Trigger was one of the first ones to do this, and boy did they do it right. Since Chrono Trigger had gotten so much hype upon its release, Square immediately started flip-flopping ideas around the office, trying to think up the perfect scenario to create a sequel to the popular game. Most ideas were, well, swept under the rug, probably because they were too stupid to make it to print, until one individual by the name of Masato Kato came up with an idea and ran with it. Thus, a game was created called Radical Dreamers. Dreamers was more of a side story to Chrono Trigger, something to tie up the loose ends from its predecessor. It's a short, text-based game relying on mostly minimal graphics and atmospheric music. The game unfortunately never saw a release outside of Japan, though it was translated by fans into English by April of 2003. Hell, Square even planned to make Radical Dreamers an Easter egg in the PlayStation edition of Chrono Trigger. But Kato, being the unlikable prick that he is, didn't like this idea and made sure that it never saw the light of day.
You blew it!
Thankfully, however, in 1999, gamers' requests would finally be heard, as a sequel to Chrono Trigger was finally made in the form of Chrono Cross. Chrono Cross introduced new settings and a new cast of characters. Rather than portraying a time travel story, this one portrayed a parallel universe sort of story, as it surrounds a teenage boy named Serge who's thrust into an alternate reality in which he died years earlier. He also runs into a character named Kid, who was actually implemented into the game Radical Dreamers. In fact, Chrono Cross actually borrowed a lot of themes, scenarios, characters, and other things from Radical Dreamers during its creation. The director of the game also borrowed a lot of the songs from Radical Dreamers while scoring Chrono Cross. And, as you can guess, Chrono Cross was just as big a hit as Chrono Trigger.
So even with Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger being such hit classic games, naturally, as players, we're always left wanting more. So the question on everybody's mind, is there going to be another game in the Chrono series? Well, I did some research, and based on what I've seen, there is some interest among developers wanting to create another game in the series. In fact, in 2003, some people in Square Enix were even trying to buy up the rights to release a game called Chrono Break. Unfortunately, a statement I found by the vice president of Square Enix says that as of right now, no such game is in development whatsoever. But hey, the future's always open to possibilities, right? And in the meantime, we've still got 2 great games. So, my advice to you, if you haven't played Chrono Cross or Chrono Trigger, you're missing out. And you should slap yourself for such foolishness. Go out, play these games. You owe it to yourself as a gamer. Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Danger Zone, and I'll see you guys next time, right here. Take care.